Thank you, Cathaoirleach. And first I want to thank you for selecting this commencement matter. And the focus of this commencement matter wasn't just exclusively about apprenticeships generally, or shall we say generally about apprenticeships. It was about the cross-border apprenticeships and really followed on from a speech that was sent to me from somebody in Queen's by Minister Harris. And it was a very impressive speech, and I want to acknowledge that too, and it was in Queen's University up in Belfast. And it was in the context of, on the One Island, something that the government have promoted, but the One Island approach and the policy that's been driven by the Taoiseach, and he's very, very committed to it. And it's the issue of how we can use cross-border connectivity and synergies and relationships in terms of developing an apprenticeship programme across the two jurisdictions. And I want to first acknowledge the enormous work for the action plan, apprenticeship plan drawn up by the Minister. I know the Minister, he's a man that when he puts his mind to anything, he's driven, he's committed, he's determined. And I want to acknowledge that. And clearly, in all his announcements since, and in this, particularly in this speech in Queen's University, he talked about his ambition in terms of the additional 10,000 new apprenticeships every year up to 2025. But I suppose I'm particularly interested, and if we don't have the detail today, Minister, I would be particularly interested on his reference to a new funding call under the Peace Plus and to do with collaboration for cross-border apprenticeships. And this is something that he is committed to doing and sourcing the funding for, and I think great potential for it. And we must work together and encourage apprenticeships. And I'm old enough to remember when people left their group cert in the tech and people laughed at them. And they went on and they walked around and met construction workers or tilers, electricians and plasterers and stonemasons, and they begged for an apprenticeship, or serving their time as it was called. And indeed, they didn't get very much money for it. And they went on, most of them, to be very, very successful entrepreneurs, business people in the construction sector. So I value and respect apprenticeships, and we learn at different levels. We're not all academic, and we learn by our hands-on approach on-site with, be it stonemasonry, be it construction, or glazing, or whatever. And I think it's a really noble way to learn a trade, to learn a profession, is to serve your time with a master of a craft, and to have a craft and to have a skill that you can use to bring an income in for yourself and your family, but also to contribute to a need. So we now know, Minister, that we have a real issue in terms of the shortage in construction. So I want to look at the issues of work-based learning on site. We all acknowledge its importance. I want to have greater focus on supporting apprenticeships, but I also want greater support on employers and how we can match apprenticeships with employers, but more importantly, how we can address the current shortage of skills, particularly in the construction sector and particularly in the retrofitting area where apprenticeships, now we need them. We need them in these areas. So I really, Minister, I think it's all good news in terms of the apprenticeship programme for the government. The Peace Plus initiative for the cross-border collaboration for apprenticeships, both north and south, I think is really exciting. And that's how we've got to build relationships north-south. And we've got to find common needs and common issues and work with them. And I don't doubt the Minister's commitment in that. I just want to ask that you might bring back to the Minister an issue that I would really ask that we would review in terms of apprenticeships, and that is the Green Cert agricultural training. There's a real shortage of people in the agricultural sector, but I spoke about teagasc and agricultural training here some months ago, and I received an email from a woman who had major concerns in relation to her apprenticeship with teagasc her serving her Green Cert. So we've issues there. We need to continuously evaluate apprenticeship programmes. Minister, I thank you for coming to the House, and if you could shed some light on these issues, or maybe a follow-up information, that would be very helpful. Thank you.
Margaret Tala.
Thank you, and I want to thank you, Senator Boyhan, for your question on these very important issues for the Department of Further and Higher Education, Research, Innovation and Science. You mentioned two words: you value and respect apprentices. I couldn't agree more, and I think that we're moving into a space now that we need to value and respect them a lot more. And your analogy of growing up was very appropriate, and I share it. As part of the Action Plan for Apprenticeships 2021 to 2025, Minister Harris committed to assessing the potential for cross-border apprenticeships programmes to enhance Ireland's ability to respond to skills needs and an all-island ability and all-island economy. Ireland operates as a small, open economy, and the ability of our graduate apprentices to operate on an international stage is to be encouraged. The opportunity for international mobility as a component of apprenticeships programmes will be piloted during the lifetime of this plan, either in the workplace or in education and training institutions. The Government's commitment to cross-border apprenticeships is reaffirmed in the revised National Development Plan 2021 to 2030, which sets out an enhanced level of ambition for collaborative cross-border public investment to build a more connective, prosperous and sustainable island for all communities and traditions that share the island. Under the NDP, the Government, through the Department, will work with our Northern Ireland and UK counterparts and other education and research stakeholders to support more strategic cooperation, realise more opportunities and shape further and higher education and research sectors that will meet the needs and capacity of the shared island into the future. This will include enhanced cooperation on a higher and further education through collaborative approaches to programmes such as developing cross-border apprenticeships. A programme area skills development strategy is being developed as part of the Peace Plus programme strategy, and this is aimed at delivering economic regeneration and transformation and identifying areas for investment, and will help to address evidence skills gaps and result in increased productivity and employment, as well as cross-border labour mobility. It will also enable cross-border collaboration between education and training-based providers to address existing and emerging skills gaps and opportunities for reskilling in key disciplines such as ICT and digital, STEAM, the green economy, entrepreneurship and leadership and management, amongst other key areas, and promote uptake of apprenticeships in key areas such as NCT. Shortly we will launch a new fund for people called for Peace Plus, with collaboration on cross-border apprenticeships. Part of that, and working together, we already identified at least one area, construction, where we can look to collaborate, and across to 2023 we will explore this in detail. Apprenticeships is a demand-driven, employer-led offering based on a contract of employment between the apprentice and their respective employer, and therefore a number of apprentices in any specific sector is determined directly by employer provision. The Department is currently working with Solace on examining the demand for construction workers between now and 2030. You also talked about the green certs for agri-training, the difficulties there. I will raise that with the Minister as well and bring it back to the Minister. But also in recent years, the annual intake in construction-related apprenticeships has been steadily increasing. In 2020, there was a total of 3,370 construction apprenticeship registrations. This rose by 60% to 5,400 construction apprenticeship registrations in 2021. And to date in 2022, there has been 2,137 construction registrations. And again, as I say, when I go to the CTCs, they have very useful trades, and I hope to make plenty of money because they're providing a great resource to an ever-growing Irish economy.
Thank you, Minister Boyhan, for that very detailed response. And the takeaway from that is that the funding call for Peace Plus is going to be announced, and I really welcome that. This Peace Plus initiative in cross-border is amazing, is fantastic, and we need to tap into it. And I think we can mutually benefit from that relationship cross-border. I also acknowledge that there's ongoing work with Solace. I think that's important, and I'm delighted to hear that. And also you mentioned the healthcare assistant practitioners. There's a real shortage of healthcare assistance practitioners. And again, that is a noble profession. It is a skill. It is a skill, and we need to acknowledge that and support it in its training, but also in its pay. And just finally, I would say, Minister, I had a call before I came up here from someone in the educational construction sector, who said that there were approximately now, I don't want to hold it to the exact number, but approximately 9,000 students in their leaving cert studying or done exams in construction studies. So they chose to do construction studies at secondary level. So there's an indication that they have an interest, and some way if we can look at dovetailing people who are coming out of secondary school, who have studied construction studies, to ascertain, are they interested in being matched up to apprenticeships? Because it's not a question of it's a job. We want people that are motivated and keen, and I'd ask that that synergy or connectivity between the Minister's Department and the secondary school sector would be looked into and explored further. Thank you. Thank you, Cahill.
Thank you. Well, I'll take on board again your views of those leaving secondary school. I think it's up to 9,000, you said, and again, it's great to see that people are looking at the trades, and you talked about hospitality, but you also talked about healthcare as well, how important it is. And education and training relevant to the skills needed in the construction sector and the green economy is delivered across the full remit of the tertiary secondary system and through mainstream education and training, as well through specific programmes such as Springboard and the Human Capital Initiative and SkillNet. In the area of healthcare, the Advanced Healthcare Assistant Practitioner is managed by an apprenticeship consortium, which includes representatives from the private, home and community care sectors, and currently has an active population of 45. There are also discussions between officials in the department, along with the counterparts in the Department of Health, the HSE and TUSLA, on the development of other apprenticeship programmes within the healthcare sectors. And amongst 65 apprenticeships that are currently available, 25 are craft-related, and more specifically they include housing, retrofitting-related programmes, green skills activities related in a range of construction and engineering-related programmes, including plumbing, carpentry and joinery, and the recent launch wind turbine maintenance technician programme. So there's a lot of different apprenticeships, and they're, again, to be very much to be welcomed.
Thank you, Minister.